Welcome to the Best Places to Lead show. I am your host, Jerry McNamara. Thank you for tuning in because we are on a mission to positively impact 5 million people in the next 4 years through better business. Now, listen, I don't know about you, but I have never met anyone who showed up to work and said, you know what, I'd really like to suck today. And yet there are plenty of people that are ineffective in their role. And what I say is it's not their fault. It's our fault as senior leaders for not creating that compelling platform for people to really show up as their authentic best at work. So that's why we're having this show, so we can learn from each other. 2 are better than 1. We have a great guest today who's going to share his story. Here's the point. If we can create a workplace that's so engaging, so fun, so compelling, where employees get surprised that they actually get paid to do this work, I think that's how we win as leaders. And what I know to be true, because I've also known the opposite to be true as well, but I know to be true, if you're good at home, you can be great at work. And if you're good at work, you can be great at home. And so this is for us to make sure that we are good husbands, we are good fathers, we are good brothers, sisters, and wives, and friends, and all of those things. Because I know that when I was not happy at work, boy, I was not a good husband. And you know what? My wife, Rachel, she told me about myself. And I appreciate the heck out of her for it. So super fun. Now listen, today we have Tyler Horsley, founder and entrepreneur in residence for Nuclear Networking. It's been an Inc. 500 high growth company, provides fractional marketing support to drive strategy and execution for companies. Firm was acquired by private equity. Congratulations. Awesome stuff. And so thanks for coming to the show, Tyler. Again, I've been looking forward to this since March. First things first, how's being a dad?
So for all the listeners, this is a first timer for me. So this was our first little guy. Being a dad is awesome. We've had unique experiences, I guess, as he kind of entered the world. And as everybody else who has kids out there knows, no sleep whatsoever. And I used to judge people, back in the day, like your friend group, you're like, man, he just got married and had a kid and now he never hangs out. Now I know why. It is brutal. You don't have it. I mean, it's rewarding, all the things that everybody says for the caveats, but no sleep, pretty much just don't function on sleep. And then that's kind of what it's like to have a newborn. So
I'm with you. So our first child is named Brooklyn. And I thought to myself, this is no joke. It's no sleep till Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And so it has been great. What is your son's name?
Oliver.
Oliver. So we're going to give Oliver his public shout out. Oliver, welcome to the world, brother. It's super fun. Your dad's terrific. And so again, thanks for being here. First question I got to ask, which is harder, being a founder or being a dad?
And well, you know what? He's under 2 months old. So I don't know that I can fairly assess and answer that question. Plus I was the oldest in my family. So I actually grew up changing diapers and doing that kind of stuff for my siblings. Right now, so far, I'd actually say founder is harder so far.
Okay.
But my wife is also killing it and doing well. So, I mean, she's helping out a lot.
My wife is amazing too. And there were times, Tyler, that I was like, I just feel like an innocent bystander here. I'm just kind of like watching how things are going and happening. And it's pretty funny. Now, I found it interesting, and I always think people's origin stories are interesting, but you have a background in government contracting with the Department of Homeland Security and the IRS. How the heck do you go from government contracting over to the transition of being the founder of a marketing agency?
Yeah, so I ended up following my father's footsteps. He was a Fed and went as an AGI specialist at the IRS. And then, as you mentioned, became an officer with DHS. And then found out very quickly that the contracting world tends to pay 2 to 3 times more. And you can still kind of achieve the initial impact, which is actually more linear and tangential than how it sounds, because it sounds like a big leap, as you already mentioned. But it's like, I just want to help people. And so I wanted to follow through. I thought I could help protect people. That was my whole undergrad, everything I've ever done. Jumped into contracting, and I told you I'd give you some funny nuggets here. But genuinely, my ops manager became a fugitive of the United States, which was a really odd turn of events and shock. And I won't mention company names or anything like that, but in the military contracting world, those who are educated in that space, you can kind of Google some stuff. But yeah, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's a good time for a career change, because that got weird real quick. And one of the cool things though, I was working in logistics, computer nerd, right, at that time, but socially capable, which I'm super happy I got that gift from. That's because I work with a lot of engineers. I know that you work with a lot of highly intelligent people too. Some
Yep.
don't like to talk to humans. They just like to create incredible things. And I got, I pulled that card out of the hat. And so I was like, well, how can I still engage with people, help people? Because that's like my core foundation, the why behind what I'm doing, but also kind of exercise this mischief for good model, which is like me 100%. So we hang out, like I'm going to poke fun and we're going to do some stuff and it's going to be hilarious, but not to hurt people as long as it's funny. No, I'm just, jokes aside, like I love, I still use the investigative skills in marketing, deconstruct competitors, why they're doing what they're doing, how does it work, pattern recognition, and kind of repositioning these puzzle pieces for a more optimal outcome. And that's my favorite thing. It's like looking at something and rearranging it and making it better. And so those two worlds collided there. And yeah, that's kind of, I know it doesn't directly speak to the transition, but I just self-taught initially, just SEO nerd, and then just kept going and going. And now I speak to multi-funnels and buying and selling businesses and all sorts of things. So yeah.
I love it. One of the things I think that is interesting is people making the leap of faith to bet on themselves, right? I think sometimes it's great to be inside the bosom of a corporation and you get the reliable paycheck, absent of COVID happening, and then suddenly everyone got laid off, and companies that were families suddenly weren't very familial anymore, as we got dog eat dog. But whether we're in a recession or not in a recession, I think there's a lot of people considering, maybe I should go out and start a business now. I mean, make an impact. If you were talking to someone who's, considering becoming that corporate refugee, what advice would you have for them on making that transition?
So I just reminded of EO and Gestalt. You're familiar with Gestalt sharing? So for those listeners, it's experience share versus shoulding all over people. You should do this, you should do that. Should, not the other word. So anyway, brief experience share. I would not have been successful at anything I've done in business if I wasn't in a survival mentality. And I know that's weird because I'm actually anti-scarcity and pro-abundance. But there's stages. And if I had a cush job and I'm kind of doing something fun on the side, it wouldn't have gone anywhere. It would have just been a hobby. And by the way, what is a job? You didn't eliminate the scare, the fear or the instability. You're simply delegating your future to somebody else's hands. And so they could mismanage their money or be poor stewards of finance, your boss, whoever is writing your checks, and you get fired the next day. Like there is no true stability anywhere. And so when I'm putting these two things together and I'm like, am I willing to bet on myself? And this has to work because I don't have any other options because of what I told you prior. Yeah. It's burn the ships, it's go all in and go as hard as you possibly can and make it work. And that's kind of the mindset that I had. And I think that's why I was able to see success earlier. It wasn't a hobby. It was a necessity for survival.
Yeah. I think about two things when you share that. And one is I think people mistake security for comfort, right? To your point, when you're not the shareholder calling the shots, it's like, I had a friend who was, went from his territory being like 50th in the country to being a top 3 on a trip to Hawaii, once in a lifetime trip. He literally flew back after the president's trip and got fired 2 days later because they were readjusting. And instead of looking at performance, they looked at seniority, and he was the newest guy. And so despite all of this success that he had created, the company made a decision that was not in his best interest. And, I just think that's such a hard thing. I think the other piece that I always offer people is the greatest predictor of future success is past performance. And so, the reason I started my own business was I got tired of making the decisions that usually worked out, having and owning the stress and anxiety of like figuring all of it out. And then, I was getting paid 6 figures, but I was making someone else 7 figures because that's what it took for them to be able to pay me that. And I think once you start realizing the mechanics of business, it's like, why wouldn't I just go do this for myself? Right? Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. But I think if you're in that mindset of, should I make the leap? It is a good leap to make. And so I'm with you. one of the things that always strikes me, Tyler, I mean, you're in this world of trying to help people figure this out, but every great company has to understand the important and painful problem that they solve. And I'm struck that sometimes people don't even understand the problem they solve, let alone who they solve it for.
Mhm.
And so tell me, when you were starting your business, what was the problem that you were trying to solve and who were you solving it for?
Sure. And I'd also give you a brief caveat. What I thought I was solving and what I wanted to do has evolved significantly over time because of my thinking and just frankly hitting walls at 100 miles an hour over and over again. You learn through pain.
Yep.
So what I wanted to solve initially, again, to help people, how do we help people? Well, help people by growing their business. And it sounds generic, but that should cascade down, right? Because if you have a safe business, safe businesses, what is a safe business? Well, maybe a financially well-performing business that's serving and adding value to their community. Those types of businesses don't randomly cut people based on seniority who just went to Hawaii. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, if I can help these companies generate more revenue through our activity, that will cascade down to every single employee. And those employees have families and kids, and they're going to school, trying to pay rent or mortgage. And so that was the initial first. And that pillar has still remained. Methodology has changed, but the initial instinct there. So
I love that. What was your different approach that led you to create high growth? Right. I don't know anyone who like starts a business and says like, oh, I just wanted to be marginally good. It's like a wedding, right? I've married 18 family and friends, and as an officiant, haven't actually married them, not a Mormon and polygamy and all of that stuff, but
sure.
18 family and friends. And I was saying to them, like, no one wants just a marginal wedding. No one wants a marginal marriage. But
Sure.
what led you to be able to create high growth to make the Inc. 500? It's amazing.
So a couple things. One, it's a compliment and comes from a place of gratitude at this point. It didn't when I was younger, but the way that I was raised by my parents, I grew up in the Midwest on an acreage, watering a horse, horses and animals at like 2 a.m. because everything was frozen solid because I didn't do my job and empty out the hose so it wouldn't carry water, blah, blah, blah. Like I was working full time since the age of 12. So that deeply instilled work ethic made it a non-negotiable for me that anything that I do, how you do one thing's how you do everything. And you referenced this in the beginning. It's like how you act at home. I know, at least in the male, business circles, happy wife, happy life. They always say that. And it's the same is true for the other parties. So it's like, okay, well, who do I want to be? And so parents certainly, beat that into me in a way, in a positive way, but like, so that was the fuel, or at least the platform that I was building anything else I do on, which was fairly sturdy. And I know that's not the case. So like kind of tongue in cheek, it's like, who would build a company that they don't want to? I've met founders who are like, no, man, I just want like 5 clients a year. I just want to take it easy. Like, I'm happy you even found entrepreneurship, because usually that kind of mindset's like, I don't really want to do anything. I just want to do X, Y, and Z. For me, call me manic, which I might be. I'm like, I need to grow or I'm dying. Right. So like, that's just my mindset, grow or die. And if I'm going to do something, why not freaking crush it and do it really well? And so that's kind of the mindset that I got into. And of course, pair that with survivalism and how are you going to pay your bills the next month? Like, it's a pretty good motivator. So
no doubt about it. I always chuckle, Tyler. So I lived in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, and there's a spot on the highway. So we share an upbringing of like work hard and harder, right? And so I remember this spot on the highway right on 202, and I had called my mom to tell her. It was right about this time because this is when the Inc. 500 list comes out, and I said, "Mom, we made the Inc. 500 again. This is amazing." And my mom said, "That's great, son. Please just work hard. There are a lot of people counting on you." And I'd laughed, and like that was her first instinct of like, there are a lot of people counting on you. Great. Get back to work. We'll celebrate for half a second and then it's back to work and let's go do it. So I think we share that. Super fun. Just to call out, Bolraj, thank you for coming. A regular that shows up for sure. And ESAT, I spoke to ESAT about 2.5 years ago. One of the smartest people I have ever spoken to, and it's such an impressive resume. I'm so glad that you stopped by at ESAT. So thanks for that. Tyler, I wanted to talk to you about a three-step process that you think about marketing. And, you talked about your problem with nuclear. So I'm taking my son to school the other day and I see this painting truck and it says, no job too big or too small, right? Can you walk us through, if you were advising that CEO and thinking about the problem that you solved, process optimization and marketability, what would you be advising this CEO who's put that on? I'm sure because it was a 386, so it's about 2 hours south of here. It's got to be on a lot of trucks. What would you tell that CEO?
Somebody, that CEO is going to like listen to this at some point and be like, I hate this Tyler guy. But honestly, the first things that come up to my mind, there's zero ego behind this, just so you know, too. It's all about, awareness. Even like you and I, the way we were raised, we're products of our own environment and all the disclaimers with that. But I would say right now, in the age of the internet, and we're out of the 90s, like it's got to be really hyper niche, this messaging, how you communicate with your client base. And so kind of speaking to the three pillars that you alluded to, a lot of people, business owners specifically, will go to conferences. They'll go to these things and they'll hear these terms, SEO, SEM, paid ads, and more. And they'll just go, oh my gosh, that's what I need. Like I need traffic, because leads or traffic, like that's what makes my business run. So before we even do that, and I'll give everybody many examples, I've grown maybe over 2,200 businesses since 2010. So I have massive amounts of like data in my head, what's worked, what's not, back to that pattern recognition hobby that I have. And one of the other hobbies is that I practiced in government was profiling, right? So it's like putting those two things together, leveraging that for marketing, building avatars. The ways that I kind of work with business owners is I try to get them to think like, back to what you already asked as well, like what problem are you actually solving for your clients? You're not just painting houses. Everybody paints houses. That's cool. But if I'm a shopper and, no problem, no home or project too big or too small, I'm like, that's odd. Like for one, it doesn't grab me at all, just in general. Like I'm gonna not even look at it. But two, it's like, what does that really say? We're kind of everything to everyone, and that's it. And we don't, maybe, now you're allowing assumptions to kind of come into the mind of the individuals that might be hiring you. It's like, well, maybe you don't actually do what I need you to do, or maybe you're not good at painting barns or commercial buildings or what have you. So anytime I do discoveries with business owners, family offices, private equity at all, and we're looking at these individual business units, understanding from a founder's point of view, what pain are you solving? What goal are you helping them hit? And like, who are you? Like, what is your why? Ripping off Simon Sinek, right? It's like, what is your why and why are you doing what you're doing? And if it's just, hey, my dad gave me this business and it's a hand-me-down and it's how I pay my bills. Okay. Then we would, and that's okay too, but at least know why you exist and who you are. And I take people through a workshop and we do all this stuff, but the real thing is once you understand who you are, your why, and your margin, then we can create objective driven offers. And so I'll go quickly on this piece, but an objective driven offer is what we call a scroll stopper. So you're in a society right now where everybody's stuck on these every second, scroll, scroll, scroll. That's the UX, UI that it just works, right? That's your TikTok, Instagram, Reddit. You just scroll, scroll, scroll. And you need a scroll stopper. You need a 5-year-old or somebody's grandmother or grandfather to be able to very quickly understand who you are, why you matter, because you have less than 10 seconds of their attention if you're lucky, and why they should even get a hold of you. And so if we can give them offer that they feel foolish to refuse, that's the starting point. So we actually do a lot of thought partnership strategy and thinking first. Like, don't go, I'm not telling everyone else to do, but I would not experience here. I would not go out and blow tons of money hiring the next marketing company down the street just for traffic. Because the other piece is, if you don't have a compelling offer, all that traffic will hit your site and leave, and you just paid a lot of money for that. And secondly, so the second pillar is obviously traffic. That's necessary. Everybody knows that once you have a compelling offer. But that third piece is client manicuring, prospect manicuring, and conversion rate optimization, which is a fancy term for, great, all your dreams came true. We had a great offer. Here's 40,000 clients tomorrow. Who's going to call them back? Who's going to email them? Who's going to text them? Are they qualified? Are they not qualified? And if you're not thinking all the way through that entire funnel, you're just going to have tons of waste, right? tons of wasted opportunities. And I help people think about ways to automate those sequences. So
it is interesting because I find, so I have a CEO that I've done a number of planning sessions with, and I love him. I'm having dinner with him in 2 weeks, but we argue over preserving optionality, right? And the reality of it is we don't have infinite resources. So we have to pick the horses that we're going to ride.
right.
We can't do everything, and we can't be everything to everyone. And, what I have learned is it's way better to get focused in on a single vertical or a single person and then find your wormhole from there.
Mhm.
And, he's a great sales guy and he wants to serve everyone, right? We serve
Yeah.
everyone. Like, yeah, but by serving everyone, no one has a handle on your business. Like, oh, well,
Right.
this is what Tyler does. Okay, I know how to refer him. And I always find that to be a great barometer as to, do people understand what it is that you do and the problem that you solve? Do they know how to refer you? Right?
Mhm.
Ask that question. Do you know how to refer me? And like, who do I
Yeah.
serve? Well, most people do not know how to refer someone. So
Yeah.
that's a good litmus test that I have learned over time. Let me ask you, like, be a little historian for yourself, right? The moment when you were like, holy smokes, this thing is actually working. What are the hardest lessons that you had to learn as your company started to take flight?
Scalability, 100%, right? Because I think for a lot of business owners, they are not blessed with, at least I wasn't, tons of endless resources to pre-build a company that could grow to 20 million, have the full CRM, automations, funnels, marketing assets, onboarding process, project management system. So everything's consistent, like Chipotle when you go to eat, no matter where you're at in the country. All these things, no way. Like, what are you worried about? You're worried about keeping the doors open. And so you're worried about making a couple of sales. And then after you sell, you're like, okay, now we have to fulfill this. And then you go fulfill it. And are you guys happy? Okay, cool. I think we could do this again. And then, so natural growing pains, right? So, I mean, right out of the gate, that survivalism, I think, was like the first and foremost piece. But scalability is just constant refinement. And it's this ladder. EOS talks about like a breakthrough. You could kind of break through the roof and then you break through again and so on and so forth. And for this, it's really just a weird circular race of, we got to get a couple bigger clients. Cool. Now we have an excess of money for a short period of time. Let's reinvest that into better reporting. Sweet. Now let's hold, grow again, and you just keep adding tool sets and refining as you go typically.
How did you think about that? Because I just wrote a post, I think it was this week, might've been last week, I don't remember, about like the stages of business. Like when you start a business,
Yeah.
you really have a job. It's like, oh shit, cool. I have a job. Like my boss, he's a real asshole.
Yep.
Right. And so you got to focus in on sales and marketing because
Yeah.
we've got to get customers. I've got to get cash. I'm back up against the wall. And then it starts to work a little bit and you start to turn left and you turn right. And it's like, oh, Tyler's my friend. Hey, Tyler, I got this thing. Come help me build this thing. This is amazing. And then you start focusing in on systems, process, and technology to make the business, stable, because you've got to train people. It can't all live in your head. And then
Yep.
the third stage is like scalability. And then you start really thinking about hiring superstars because now you actually have some cash to bring in some proper people. And you need to think about your leadership team so that
Mhm.
they can do it better than you can and, manifest your vision. And oh, by the way, the guy who believed in you incredibly loyally in that small, medium business stage that you named COO at $500,000, you have to have a hard conversation with him because he's not going to get you to 10 million. He's a great guy. There's a role for him. He might be director of ops, but he's not the COO anymore.
Yeah.
And, I think those are things that, the stages that people go through. How did you think about how to deploy resources? Did you have any intentionality? Sometimes it's just like you're on fire. Like I got to get out of the Google sheet. Let's go over to, I don't know, ActiveCampaign or HubSpot for our CRM. Did you have any type of thinking as you started to grow the business of like, all right, I've got to add this thing next?
Yeah. By the way, I've ran companies on Google products for free.
Yeah,
Google
totally.
Sheets, if I just had Sheets, awesome. To your point, way better platforms out there, but it does work and it's API friendly when needed. So,
Yep.
Okay. Resources. I think what we looked at, well, one, if you can generate, you could do this, back to free Google Forms to kind of generate an automated monthly or put it at the bottom of your signature, you always want to pulse in your customer satisfaction. So like under your signature, hey, rate me here. How's your experience? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they're proactive enough. And if they're not, you can write, this is anonymous, or whatever, make it anonymous. But as long as I knew that they were happy, the way that I prioritized automation and kind of the next build was what is taking me the most time that's monotonous. I don't want to be in the minutia and it's not my highest and best use. If I'm doing $5 an hour, $10 an hour, whatever, that's not my highest and best use. You need to do that initially. But I just looking at what are the things that I hate most that I do? You write them down on a list, you reprioritize by bandwidth requirements, money, savings, all that basic criteria. And then those are the things we chose to invest in first.
I think it's so smart. I hate administration. I hate paperwork. Maria's on this call. She is my assistant. She's a lifesaver. I mean, I hope my wife's not on this call. I mean, there'd be months where I wouldn't bill people because it's like, I'll get to that next month, right? I mean, like people like, Jerry, can you please send me a bill? Please send me a bill. I'm like, maybe. And so, I think you got to get out of those places and into your unique ability so that you are actually adding, the value in the place that only you can add it. And I tell people all the time, the faster that you can get to investing in your business, whether it's in tools or an assistant or help, make that investment because it's the only way that you can grow and get out of your own way. Tools are a great way to do that if you have a tech background, right? I mean, a lot of founders do not have that background. One of the things, I ran a company that went from 7 million to 30 million in 3.5 years. And, by all accounts, people were like, that's amazing, incredible. I still lay in my bed, Tyler. And I think if I had brought in Zach Mitchell, who's the best COO I have ever seen, and just an incredible operator, could I have gotten to 50 million? Right? That's what I think about. So as you look back on scaling a business, what's something that you wish you could press redo on that another CEO who's in the midst of scaling their business might benefit from?
I think it would be along the lines of, so two pieces, I guess. One is there's two kind of core forms of learning. And I love accelerated learning. I want to learn as efficiently and as quickly as possible. So like windshield time and everything, it's podcasts like this. So just sitting there listening to music or something. I like music, but it's not educational and it may not help me. So you can learn through experience or you can learn through advice. And that's kind of my methodology. And advice is sometimes free from great mentors who have already done it before you. And experience is typically painful and expensive. And so I would say first and foremost, find as many people who are willing to speak into your life as possible that already have a proven track record, and do not treat them like a client. You're not asking them for money. You're not asking them to sign up. You keep that relationship sacred, but you find mentors, coaches, people who've done it beforehand, because they'll collapse like 30 years of learning and pain into like 3 for you. And now you can start from their success and you'll have a quick start. The second thing, trying to like come through, because there's several of those pieces. The way in which I think that I could do much better is not skimping on talent. So in key positions. And so in my world, especially when we were just doing SEO, like there's tons of monotonous work. Like, man, doing alt tags on 10,000 images is like watching paint dry. It's brutal.
Wow. Now,
by the way, we've created AI that accesses image databases and we can do all that in like 10 seconds. And 86% accuracy. So like seriously, it's like, hey, if we're going to do e-commerce marketing, we better automate this because this is brutal. But I have seen, and usually people don't see this until they start generating revenue, which kind of stinks, right? But it's like, I hired another EOer. So I'm in this group EO. It's a global organization.
Great organization.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So it's like, that's expensive to hire an EOer. Like these are monster business people. They could be doing this on their own. They don't need to work for me. I want them to work with me. And so hire that person. And oh my gosh, like having another founder in there, I just would say, really do your due diligence on who you hire and think in smaller terms. I know this is maybe not great advice, but for me, how much are they? $250K a year? That's terrifying. How much is it for 3 months?
Right.
Because if you shut the doors and go out of business, you're not paying them for a year. I'm just kind of crass kidding a little bit, but like, what if they come in and they implement like 5 years of work in 2 months?
Yep.
and you can skip 5 years of winging this and trying to do it yourself and automatic. So there's a tightrope balance, but that's what I would do differently. I would source the highest talent I could find because they are problem solvers and they can save you like 5 years of winging it and growing, trying to do this stuff on yourself. So
I love that. I love learning mindsets. It's the last ring on my business acceleration model.
yeah,
I just find that, curious companies and learning based companies, they solve problems differently and they innovate faster. And so that's how you win. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the art of letting go. I think this is one of the hardest things that people run into. Like the business is starting to work. I even have a term for this. I call it the high achievers trap, which is to say, like, I feel like I have to do all the doing. And the
Yep.
reality of it is, I don't have to do all the doing. I have to resource the jobs to be done.
Yep.
And those are two very different mindsets that founders and entrepreneurs need to get out of, even CEOs who are brought in. And so you have to work your way through people if you're going to grow and scale a business. Otherwise, you become the obvious bottleneck in business. And so, I think about it, and managers and directors, they work on task lists because they're responsible for getting the stuff done, right? Whereas the C-suite, we manage objectives. We make sure the resources go on the opportunities, and we have strategic execution on all of those. So how do you go from the mindset of the entrepreneur where I need to do everything and control everything, especially when you've been in a world where like you love this, not that you love the scarcity mindset, but like you love having your back up against the wall, like we're going to go make shit happen and let's go do this, to the CEO's mindset of hiring and resourcing?
I would strongly encourage everyone listening to move to the latter and just put yourself in a false rule set box where you are creating a company that you are not allowed to work at. And if you can think through that lens, like that's the beginning of how you might want to think, because the reality is you will come to that conclusion eventually. You can do it now, or you can busy your whole life up and sacrifice friends, family, relationships, personal time, stress, knock 10 years off of your life. I had like adrenal issues from my stress back in the day. And like there's a real cost to that. And it's literally just a mind shift. And what are you sacrificing? Control, maybe control of outcome, even though you can still play quality control and make sure these people are doing their jobs well. Money is probably it, because what you're getting in return is like scalability, time, like just so many more valuable assets than you would if you're doing it on yourself. The founder's trap starts at, well, man, we just started making a little bit more money and I don't want to hire this position yet because we need the money, right? And it's like, man, if you make that rule, you cannot work at your own company. I wish. And look, maybe you don't have the resources to think that way yet, but that's got to be like the thing that's right above your door when you leave your home every day. Like, get out of your own way. Learn to trust other people. Well, I can't trust them because they don't do the job well. Is it in an SOP? Can they follow steps on how to do your job? Oh, you haven't done that? It's all in your head? That's probably why. So like, those are the things that just me personally, like I've tripped over myself over in all the new companies I invest in. I don't work there. I will advise, I'll sit on the board, I'll make recommendations, but I'm not going to do the operations. So
yeah, I broke this down in a previous episode somewhere, but the 5 T's of execution. So when I am ruthlessly evaluating execution, I look at 5 things: tools, time, training. That's on me as the senior leader to provide my people to execute. So did I do that? I need to be honest about that. The 4th one is talent. I've got to evaluate, is this person capable? Do they have the DNA to actually solve the problem that I hired them for or not? And then the 5th one is tenacity, right?
Yeah.
Do they have the ability to bulldog? Are they the type of people that just like go get the project done? Because that's the type of person that they are. That's the self-talk. I'm the type of person who gets projects done. And I have just found that to be a great framework to assess, is this a me thing or is this a them thing, right? Because our job is to create opportunities for people,
right.
tools, time, and training. Then they have to do the work to exploit the opportunity and make it really symbiotic. And so that's been helpful for me as I've looked to say like, God, I'm sure you've had this problem before where you're like, I don't know, are they in the right seat, or is it me? Is it them? Is it like,
Yeah.
and I just
Yeah.
find that to be a good way to assess that piece.
I love
So,
that because you can almost kind of gaslight yourself. You're either one of two, not one of two, but like I've seen two common founders. One's like the ecocentric, my way or the highway. I'm God. Everyone else bow down. No one will follow you. By the way, they'll all eventually leave. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right.
yeah.
The second type of entrepreneur, which is more me, it's like I practice killing ego and introspection regularly because it allows me to better integrate and communicate with partners, clients, employees. And I gaslight myself. I'm like, maybe it's my fault. Like, of course it is. I'm the leader. I got to figure this out. And at the end of the day, it's like, nah, they shouldn't actually work here. And somebody can come in and they're like, why does that person work here? I don't know. So
you know what I hate? The number one thing that I've hated running businesses where, I've finally gotten to that place where I've done my part. I've fulfilled my responsibility of giving this opportunity to someone. And not that you ever feel good. I never feel good changing someone's trajectory of their life, but I did my part. And then you let them go and you have people swing by your office and you're like, thank God you finally let Tyler go. And you're like, why did you not, like, you see something that I didn't, if we were on a New York City, street corner and I was talking to you and I stepped out in front of a bus, what would you do? You'd grab me by the scruff of the neck. You'd pull me back off the curb. It's like, that's what friends do. That's how we look out for each other. And yet in business, it's like, oh, well, I didn't want to call anyone out. Well, we don't call people out. We call people up because we're clear on the vision. We're clear on the values. We're clear on the mission of everything that we're doing. And that one always just I get passionate about that because like, why didn't you just tell me? I'm a good listener. I'm a really good listener. Esad, did you get your microphone working?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. No, this is very helpful dialogue going on, Tyler and Jerry. Thanks a lot. Maybe a question over here. We are at the scaling stage of one of the businesses that I founded. And what are those indicators of when do you think that those changes in the leadership should take place? What are the indicators of that? You already touched base several of them that I noted down. But are there any clear indications in your mind at the scaling stage, not at the beginning stage, but at the scaling stage, then you need a leadership change? What are those indicators? Can you touch base a little bit on that?
Tyler, I'll let you take it, and I have thoughts behind yours.
Sure. Yeah. So mine will just be experience share again. But for us, I, as a founder, kept finding myself putting out fires, doing other people's jobs. And like something, I can't grow past this. I built a list for myself as well. It's like, these are all the things that I absolutely hate doing. I'm willing to do them, but I hate it. And then I started thinking, like, if I didn't have to do these things, I could be out selling, speaking, dramatically helping our company grow versus working in the company. So for me, it was a self-realization. I had an affirmation moment. We decided to implement EOS. That's just personal preference for me. And basically, they had to start over, and their first daily sequence is everyone's fired, hypothetically. What needs done in this company? And we start writing out tasks. Who should do those things? Not people, but seats. Well, that's an accountant's job. No, that's a marketer's job. That's this job. And eventually I'm like looking at this and I'm like, shoot, there's like 14 roles here and there's only 5 of us working here right now. And I'm sitting and I'm doing like 3 people's jobs. And so like, that's the start, just being aware of knowing that you have a big gap and undergoing an exercise like that really forces everyone to get into that mindset. And then you prioritize those roles. Who do we need like tomorrow? And okay, who's the second hire? Who's the third hire? Who could we contract instead? And so those are the things that that have helped me quite a bit in that space. Pass it to you.
It is such a hard one, Seth, because people have been loyal to you. They've come along. What I find is that when people have gotten in over their head, they start borrowing your brain or borrowing your hands more often than they should, because you've hired them to solve a problem for you. I don't care what it is. You should be clear about the problem that this person has been hired to solve. If you're not clear on that, then that is your job to retrench down and say, have I created clarity? Have I created a challenge? Or am I comfortable that they have the tools, time, and training? And do I care about my people? That's how you create a really compelling environment. But clarity and challenge is what we're talking about here. So if you find people coming to you too often then you have to think, is this a me thing where I'm not giving things up? Or is this we've passed the utility of this person? Not that we see people as utility, but people are there to solve a problem. Maybe there's a role change that we need to have. And, we had someone on the show, Kim Bach, she was great at this. I think when you get better at firing people, it's easier to bring the right person in. And so, what she coaches people about is, ESAT, the story that I'm telling myself is, we're going to have a hard conversation. You're going to get really mad at me. You might start yelling at me. And that's my fear in having this conversation. But I want you to know that I care really a lot about you. And I'm so grateful for everything that you've done. And then you say what needs to be said. And you either come to a resolution of being able to bridge that gap, or sometimes, I'm a big fan of Jeff Weiner, and he talks about compassionate leadership, former CEO of LinkedIn. What I have found, people in those situations, they say to you, thank God, I have been drowning. I have not been enjoying my work. This has been horrible. I'm losing weight, or I'm putting weight on. And it's like you have lifted the rock off their chest. That's the difference between empathy and compassion. Empathy is, oh my gosh, I feel your pain. There's a rock on your chest. Compassion is, let me do something about it. Like, oh my God, Tyler, let me get that rock off your chest, brother. And so I think the better you get at that. And then the other piece is, I have found when you've made a decision that, hey, this isn't working, activating your network and saying, you know what? I got this guy, Tyler. He's fantastic, high energy. Here's what he's great at. He's just not the right fit for what we need right now. And when you do that, it just empowers you to have much better conversations with people, because you're going to get them to the right spot that they need to get to. But that's my experience in trying to understand when you're starting that takeoff. Man, it's hard. He said, I'm telling you, it is hard having that conversation because you're so grateful for those people. And yet, the only reason that I was able to lay my head on my pillow and, I'd lay people off is that there were 75 or 80 different families that were counting on me to make good decisions. And there were 500 subcontractors that were counting on me to make really good decisions. And that was what bolstered me. This was the right decision. It was hard. It was personal. I don't, anyone who says, oh, it's not a personal decision, just a business decision, should not be in leadership. Because when you make business decisions, they affect people, they affect families, and you can never neglect or forget that responsibility. It is the number one thing. It's why people leave. And so those are my experiences. Was that helpful?
Well, it's very helpful. Both feedbacks are awesome. Awesome.
Awesome.
That's exactly what I'm living through at the moment. So I'm not alone, I guess.
You are not alone. I mean, this is the trajectory. In fact, I'm speaking at an event, the Badass Business Summit down in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas in September. And this is one of the topics that I'm talking about is figuring out how to go from job to small business to scaling and getting yourself up and off the ground, because it's not easy. I mean, not only 5% of businesses make it past $1 million a year. There's 30.5 businesses in the United States. Only 5% of them make it past $1 million. So, I mean, it's a big event to do that. And then as you start to see the thing really take off, it's like, oh, okay, this is kind of fun, but it's a little harrowing too, as you navigate it. Especially because, you started the business, and I know your background. You started the business because you're a technical leader. You know what you're doing. And then suddenly it's like, oh, I've got to run a whole business around this thing. It's like, oh shit, that's all right. I guess I got to do that. I always laugh and tell the story about, I got a call to my office one time, and it was our front desk person. She said that the Department of Homeland Security is here. They want to talk to the person in charge. I was like, shit, that's me. I put my phone down and went downstairs. Those are the things that people don't tell you when you choose entrepreneurship. Like, that might happen to you. So it's just part of the process. So good stuff. Tyler, coming back to you. So I was in Denver and I didn't invite you to lunch. I'm still upset about it. But one of the things that we were talking about was the changing and uncertain business landscape. And so, are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? The hiring process, hybrid versus remote. I mean, there's so many things that are happening in this business landscape. What are you learning right now in this environment?
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I won't make any claims as to where we're at, I guess, status wise. And personal experience and frankly, like business deliverables, different people will feel different things. Like the contracting world, still up. I see roofs, painting, like all that kind of stuff is still humming. Other, commodities have come down, luxury products and what I mean, that kind of stuff. Some of that stuff's slowing down. So what am I learning? I guess one prediction I do have is that, at least for my own industry, I don't think in 10 years, likely 5, that you have the sizes of staff that you do for marketing execution. I think 80% of marketing execution, if not 90, will be automated fully. And I think what people will really pay for at the end of the day, that so far, it's not led me, even like ChatGPT 4 variants and future updates, understanding the human condition and intent enough, paired with marketing acumen, to be able to come in and actually offer thought partnership and strategy. You cannot outsource or automate strategy truly. And so I think that people will be paying highly paid strategists to really conceptualize and architect the entire framework. Then you can have AI go out and build the framework with human oversight. So yeah, I look at those things, I look at things that are, we were doing before COVID and all the other things that we've experienced in our lifetime, working remote, accessing talent globally, not just limiting yourself to your own city.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool and it's a great ambition if you have an office and you want that old office culture and everybody's there. Like I appreciate culture, and it's still a gray area for me, to be honest. But at the same time, it's like, so now I don't get to meet 14,000 other people who want to work here tomorrow who are like the best fit just because I limited myself. And, so those are the things that I think about all the time. But on a personal note, where is my highest and best use in life? Even running, I was formerly the CEO at Nuclear, even running a performance marketing company, that wasn't my highest and best use. It was a necessary part of my journey, and I helped a lot of people and I loved it, but I could do greater. You know what I mean? And I actually can do greater with focus on less than 150 to 200 clients, so it's like, and frankly, just do it for myself, for my own companies. And so highest and best use, as you as a founder, like what is your highest and best use? That's top of mind for me.
I love it. What's the difference between being a CEO and a founder entrepreneur?
I think one of the best experience shares that I've had on that is I got to meet the founder of Meow Wolf. And for anybody who's familiar or not familiar, if global audiences are like, what did you say? And I'm also like, yeah, I don't know. I did find out that they came up with the word Meow Wolf by genuinely pulling 2 pieces of paper out of a hat. So that helped me. Because I mean, that's what I would have guessed. But Meow Wolf is basically this really strange free art concept. Imagine like Alice in Wonderland for adults, but mixed with a McDonald's playpen back in the day. I don't know. So it's like this fully immersive. You just walk around and you feel like you're in another world. It's pretty cool. I think they only have a couple of them around the United States. They're newer. But I met the founder. The founder was the artist. The founder was the visionary. The founder had the initial, like, here's my vision and what I want. You know what the founder's not? A professional CFO. A professional Python coder who can code. Whoa, like that would kill his creativity so quickly. The founder is also not somebody who's going to manage 5 C-levels and take this to a national level and help each of those C-levels understand culture and hiring practices and build entire teams. That's not, this person's an artist. Like, you don't want to mess with that. So sometimes founders are CEOs. I was one.
Yep.
But I mean, they definitely can be different, right? Executive officer, to your point, CEO is a guy who gets, hey, or the gal, like DHS is downstairs. Yay. And it's not Tyler, somebody else. So it's like that you carry all the weight, you get blamed for everything, you get sometimes the praise for the good, and ultimately you keep steering and making sure that everybody's aligned with vision and culture. But yeah, those would be the differences in my experience, I guess. So
I love that. That's a great answer. So it's been great getting to know you, but I don't know you extremely well. And so if I knew you extremely well, what's the question that I should have asked you that other CEOs would benefit from?
Why are you doing all this? So I would, and it's not just, hey, I found a niche, I'm good at business, or I've seen success in the past and therefore I'm doing it. And I just have this endless drive to work because of the way I was raised or something. For me personally, it's impact, and it sounds really, and I'll elaborate on that in a moment, but as a preface, people are philanthropic for different reasons. Some people need a tax break. Other people want to look good publicly because they're in the light all the time and they need to look like they care and they virtue signal, but it's a check. If little dark turn, but like if I get hit by a bus on the way home after this Facebook Live, like no one cares about my success as a business owner and all these things. It doesn't matter. My family wouldn't, there's money and that comes and goes, but it's like impact on people globally is one of the passions that I have. So I take everything that I know and through Providence Advisory, you and I talked about that a little bit, like for free, like I'm helping charities that are actually saving people's lives, either clean water, planting businesses, creating micro GDPs in third world parts of the globe, where they can actually empower leaders from within to create sustainable businesses to actually do the same impact I'm doing here. Like that stuff lights me up. So if I have a talent, yes, I can make money for my family, then what? And so if you want to leave legacy, like that's a lot of the work that I've done in the last 5 years, thinking about like, what is legacy? It's not about me. Like, can I impact you guys? You get this right out of the gate, man. You want to impact 5 million people in 4 years. Come on. So you get this. So that's me too, and I don't have as cool of a tagline. That's the why, and that's something that I think you would only talk about with somebody more intimately on a friendship level, because some people don't care. They're just like, show me the next business trick. Like, that's cool too, there's a time and place. So yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, one of the things that I've learned, and I was sitting here thinking, as you were talking about this, the strategist and AI and what's needed there. One of the people that I work with is Amanda Holmes. Her father wrote The Ultimate Sales Machine, Chet Holmes.
Yeah.
And so I was on a call yesterday with some of her people. And one of the things that I said was AI cannot replace strategy, right? And end of story. And so, the whole concept of The Ultimate Sales Machine is the death of a salesman, the birth of a strategy. And I agree with that. And, one of the things when Amanda rewrote that book last fall, came back out, was another bestseller, super proud of her, amazing. She wrote chapter 13, and it came from a letter that her father, Chet, had written. He talked about he had made more money in the last 6 months than he had his whole career. And he started to learn, why that was. And at the heart of it, as Amanda and I have talked deeply about this, if you become financially wealthy and emotionally bankrupt, you lost the game, right? Like, I know plenty of people that became financially wealthy and they're paranoid because they think everyone's out to try and get them. And it's like, just build world-class relationships, be a good human. How can you serve and give back to the world? Like, yes, this is my mission, right? Positively impact 5 million people. Why? Because I never knew what it meant to show up and not enjoy your work. I was like, well, I just changed the rules of the game. I'd always been in senior leadership. And then I was brought in to run a company where I couldn't change the rules of the game. I was like, holy shit, this sucks. This is what my wife told me. You're not a good husband. You're not a good dad. I was like, oh, yeah. And so I just said, no one starts a business to make their people miserable, but sometimes they don't know how. Sure. And it's become second nature. I've run 5 businesses. I've advised over 100. And it's like, let's just give people the tools. Let's give them the roadmap to do this. Because it's way more fun. It's way more fun to do it that way. And so legacy, I think, is super important. I talked about this on Friday. I was invited to officiate a funeral for my sister-in-law's mother who passed away. And I was talking about the gift of death and what it teaches us about life. And part of it is legacy. What do you want people to say to you, say about you at your funeral? And, I tell people this, and this has been years. I'm very clear. I want people to show up and I want them to tell Briggs in Brooklyn that I was a good, nice person, that they are a better person for knowing me. And I took some risks. Some of them worked out. Some of them didn't. Some of them were colossal failures. But at the end of the day, they enjoyed knowing me and they were a better person for it. And then that just is a roadmap for like, how do I live my life? How do I treat people? Like, do I give high fives or do I like just walk by people? I'm a high fiver. I'm a Buzz Lightyear guy. And so, I think when you get to that terminal state, like, what is it that I would want people to say to Rachel and my two kids?
Right.
And it's just so easy. Like when values are clear, decisions are easy, then you just have to act on them, right? That's the last piece of the puzzle. But for you, I'm with you, right? It's legacy. I don't think anyone's going to know who I am, Tyler, in 1,000 years. I don't know who my great grandparents were 100 years ago.
Right.
Right. And so when you start to think about you're going to be dead for an eternity, how does that change the way you live? And to me, some people get like, oh, bummed out about that. To me, that's exciting. Because like, all right, you're right. Like I'm 48. I hope I got maybe another 30 years on life, but I'm not betting on it. I wouldn't even put a $3 bet on it. And so I just want to have fun every single day, treat people really well. And that's why we do the show. Two are better than one. This is a great legacy. Maybe, when my kids are 40, they'll listen to an episode of Best Places to Lead and you and me and say like, oh, that's what Dad was about. Right. And that to me is super fun. I love this. Tyler, how can people find more of you, more about you? Because your insights are fantastic.
I would say LinkedIn, I guess. I used to, and you'll even see this in my description on LinkedIn, inbox rarely monitored. Because I have
no doubt
made the mistake of accepting everyone. And now I get spammed all the time and have to block people and blah, blah, blah. I actually hired a VA to help me do that. So it was a lot. LinkedIn right now, Tyler at nuclearnetworking.com is good. Yeah. So I would, Oh, thank you for sharing the link in the chat. That's cool.
And we'll post it into the show notes. So fun. And Isat, May, Balraj, Maria, thank you for coming, being here live. I think it's super fun. One of the things that I'm not good at, Tyler, when we think about like legacies, is I'm not good at asking for help. I'm the one that gives help all the time. Mm-hmm. And so I would love it if you're listening to this or you're listening on Facebook, send this episode because it was so good. Send it to someone who that would benefit from it because we're better together. And that's really the goal in doing this. I say this all the time, whether you're 2 feet ahead of someone or 2 miles ahead of someone, if you've had your teeth bashed in, share the lesson so someone else doesn't have to get their teeth bashed in. And that's really the goal of what it is that we're doing here. One of the things that I will offer to people too is on Thursdays from 2 to 3 o'clock Eastern time, we gather senior leaders. It's something free that I've been doing since November 2019. And it's just a way for people to come together and say, Esat, to your point, hey, I'm having this idea, this trouble. Is there anyone that's had this problem? And, at the very least, you get me, but usually you get really other smart CEOs and senior leaders who say, you know what, I had that problem, or, hey, I have a guy, let me connect you to him or her. And that to me is so fun because it's just an opportunity for all of us to get better. I'd invite anyone to come do that. Now, listen, next week, I'm going to change it up a little bit, right? We're going to do a show that's going to be live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We're going to move the show to Monday morning at 10:30 a.m. And part of that is because my kids now are back in school and my daughter's in middle school. And so the timing is bad when my wife travels to do this on Thursday afternoons. And the reality of it is I spend 20 to 25 hours every week talking to CEOs. I get amazing insights. In fact, I publish them every Tuesday, all the lessons learned. And so what people have said to me, including my CEOs, they said, Jerry, why don't you just do a show about the things that you've learned and give us more context about how to put it into action? And so I'm going to do that. And I'm also going to continue to interview people like Tyler. Tyler, you were amazing today. Thank you. And Esat, I'd love to have you on the show. I loved our conversation that we had. I remember like 2.5 years ago, and you were so generous with your time. I was so grateful. By the way, if you look up Esat, you will see how impressive he is. And so I was like, I can't believe I'm speaking to Esat. This is incredible. And those are the types of people that we want to come and invite on the journey so that we're better together. But anyway, I think it's going to be super fun to do it live on multiple platforms where people can, type in questions. Maria will, of course, quarterback everything. She's not only the good looks behind the operation, but the brains too. So Maria, I appreciate the heck out of you. All right, friends. Tyler, great to see you. Thanks again. And I hope you guys all have a great day.